Hello, everyone, and welcome to a slightly hungover edition of Poddywood, the podcast where we talk about movies with the people who make movies. Need to find a new slogan, really. But anyway, I am one of your co-hosts, Steve Hester, and with me, as always, is...
The very sober Andrew Roger Carson.
I'm definitely sober. I'm just massively hungover.
Well, it's only your birthday once a year.
I
You're
know.
generally allowed, and then I just kind of spring. Oh, we've got to record a show
Yeah,
onto you.
well, it
Not
needed to
only
be
that,
done.
I also get you to sit through 8mm.
Yes. I did sit down. I had to do it this afternoon, actually, as opposed to last night, because I was too busy drinking last night. But I sat down this afternoon and watched 8mm, what Joel Schumacher did after Batman and Robin.
Oh, that must have been a very sobering experience for you.
It's not a pleasant movie, but it's kind of unpleasant in the same way that Seven is unpleasant. I thought it was a good film, actually, and I know that this series was trying to go for the rotten end of the tomato barrel, but I quite enjoyed this, getting that out of the way. But it's not a pleasant movie to sit through by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh no, it's not Labyrinth.
No, very true. But yes, Nicolas Cage plays a private detective, and he gets hired by this wealthy widow who finds a 8mm film that you put in a projector in her deceased husband's safe, and it shows what appears to be a snuff film. And then she basically says, "I want you to go out and want you to find out whether or not this is real, and then let me know," because she wants to know that the girl in the movie is unharmed. And then Cage goes into the very, very seedy underbelly of pornography and illicit pornography, and spoiler. I'm not even going to say spoilers alert. You know, this film came out 1999. It's 22
Yeah.
years yet later. So come on, you know, if you want to watch it, you'll have watched it by now. If not, nah. If you don't want it spoiled, then just skip ahead about 10 minutes or so. But he finds out that the movie itself was real. The girl died, and then has to try and track down her killer. So, as you can imagine, it's not a particularly nice thing. It touches on many, many different elements of the underground fetish scene. There's lots of BDSM and bondage, and it mentions rape movies and so on and so forth. So as you can imagine, it's some pretty unpalatable material. And there's one point where he goes to an underground market to try and track down evidence as to whether or not snuff films are real, because it says in the movie, and oh no, they're an urban myth. And there's one thing which I noticed, there's a box of child pornography that he stops by, and then you can, because he's got a daughter in this, he kind of picks it up and is revulsed by it to the point he's kind of absently wiping his hands on his clothes as if touching it as just like stained his hands. So, you know, we're dealing with some dark stuff. But you have an incredible cast going into this world of filth and depravity. You've got Nicolas Cage, you've got Peter Stormare as the guy who actually made the video. You've got late James Gandolfini as another pornographer. You've got Joaquin Phoenix as Cage's assistant that he meets in a pornography store in Hollywood. You've also got a young Norman Reedus in there, was playing
Yes.
the victim's boyfriend before they broke up and he ended up in prison. So if you're familiar with stuff like Seven and that kind of dark material, you probably will enjoy this. And it even had elements, at times it had kind of like the feel of something like Silence of the Lambs or a very, very dark Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
But no, it's not a pleasant movie, but it is a good movie. Hope that makes some kind of semblance of sense.
I find it kind of interesting when you reeled off the entire cast there. You didn't mention Catherine Keener.
Oh, as his wife, yeah.
So all of your guys were males, and I think that there's something in that there where it's a very, very male-driven movie. I think
It
it would
is.
be, yeah, I think it would be a very, I'm not sure it'd be a darker, more powerful movie if Nicolas Cage was actually played by a woman.
It
Not
probably
Nicolas
would
Cage, I
be.
mean his character,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, to be honest, though, the character of his wife just seems to exist so that he can ignore her.
True.
She's constantly going, "Yo, what's going on? What's happening? What are you doing? Where are you going?" And he just kind of just stands there staring at something else.
I love the way that they got the kind of purity of the Tom Wells character, which was the character played by Nicolas Cage. They did something very smart in the whole writing thing, where, you know, even though he does all of this work, his biggest secret is the fact that he's smoking.
Yeah, and there's a wonderful scene where he comes back at the very beginning. His missus clocks immediately that he'd been smoking, and he says, "No, I've been in all these bars. My clothes stink of it." And then, like, less than 2 minutes later, he gets called down to his office, which is in his home, and he's on the phone and he lights up a cigarette.
Yeah.
It's like he's not even trying to hide it.
But I think it's just, that's a great bit of establishing on your character as, you know, he is a very pure person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that is probably the length of his, you know, bad habits.
Yeah.
You know, and then he's going to get thrust into this world that is, you know, it goes beyond perversion to the point where, I mean, it's almost, when you see this movie, I watched it again also, but I watched mine last night because I follow the rules of the fucking show. And it's one of those films where you feel dirty after you've watched it.
You do.
In those scenes, you know, where he's going to the underground and they have a real life enema film playing on a screen. And it is an actual real film of someone getting an enema. And you're just like, oh, God. I mean, it's good to feel like that because obviously, you know, you're not that far lost with the porn you probably do watch. But
it made me want to come downstairs once I'd finished watching it and just get a hug from my partner Amanda. I just wanted like the warmth of human contact.
So I take it she didn't sit through this one with you then.
She didn't. No, she got the kids out of the way throughout most of it, which was grateful for. But speaking of that, you know, Max California, who's played by Joaquin Phoenix, he says at one point, I can't remember the exact line, but he says, like, you know, the devil is gonna try and claim you or something similar.
Is it something like you dance with the devil doesn't change, the devil changes you?
Yeah, that's
all over the trailer.
Yeah, you know? And he's basically saying that, you know, the deeper that you dive into this, the more that it's going to affect you. And then by the end of it, it does affect him to the point that he outright murders someone. And it's James Gandolfini's horrible pornographer. But you compare the character at the end to the character at the beginning, and he has properly gone on this journey. I'm not entirely sure if it is justified or if it isn't. I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I think it comes on a little bit too quickly, but at the same time, it is entirely justified. And I can honestly think that would any of us really do the same if we were put into the same situation? We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually kind of shocked that this sits at 23%.
Yeah.
Right, because it's not a bad movie. It'd be interesting to know if a lot of those reviews came because of its subject matter.
It probably is.
Because at its time, I mean, this was a couple of years removed from Seven, and Seven kicked off like this whole, you know, subgenre of, you know, the serial killers and the seedy side of life and depravity and things like that. And I followed this movie when it was coming out because Andrew Kevin Walker had written it, but as we all know, he distanced himself from it because his version was a lot more graphic and grotesque in that way. I mean, this movie is the lighter version of that movie.
Which makes you really wonder what was in that original script.
Yeah. I mean, Joel Schumacher apparently came off of Batman and Robin. And I think he was suffering from major kind of blockbuster fatigue. and he went on vacation. When he came back, he called Columbia saying, "Is there anything that I can do, but not a Hollywood blockbuster? You know, is there something you've got?" And Amy Pascal, running Sony at the time, she said, "Oh, we've got this, but it's dangerous. It's probably the most dangerous script in Hollywood at the moment." And Joel Schumacher was like, "Batman and Robin 2?" No, it was 8mm, and they read it and it was like, okay, we know this is going to be a challenge. They were going to make it independently with Russell Crowe, and Russell Crowe was like, I want to do this movie, but I want a scene where he sets the child pornography on fire in a bin. And they're like, yes, we can do that. And then Nicolas Cage's agent at the time ends up calling Joel Schumacher and says, "Oh, Nicolas Cage would be interested in doing it." So naturally, Joel goes back to Sony, says, "Okay, we can either make it a really gritty independent movie with Russell Crowe, or we can make it a bigger movie with Nicolas Cage." Of course, what's Sony gonna do? But they went with Nicolas Cage, and I think the one person who bore the brunt of that was Amy Pascal. She apparently took a ton of heat for greenlighting this movie.
I'm not
because
surprised.
the studio were kind of disgusted by it, and the promotion of the movie was nowhere near a lot of the Columbia Sony movies got. So they deliberately downplayed the movie a lot.
Getting past the background behind it, do you think that everything should have been kind of wrapped up at the warehouse? Because when it got to the end of it, and Gandolfini's dead, Peter Stormare's dead, and the only one who's left is the actual the guy who's in like the bondage master out the whole thing.
Machine.
Who just turns out to be just like some schlub that lives with his mother and says, No, I just do this because I like it. Everything after that kind of felt like with a few little chops, it could have just ended at the warehouse. A lot of that.
I see what you're saying. I mean, the warehouse scene comes just over halfway through the movie.
It doesn't feel like halfway. It feels like much later than that.
It feels much later, but then afterwards, obviously, he gets his escape. He ends up going back home, and then he decides he's got to come back out, and he's got to finish it. So then, he tracks down Eddie, then he tracks down Machine, and then and there was something about the pacing that was a bit off.
Yeah,
it felt like it should have ended sooner.
Because I think the first half of it has got quite a decent pace to it, but then something happens with the second half, and it's not that it's slow, but it loses kind of like the momentum a little bit, and it just feels off kilter.
I mean, it feels like it was written, and I know it was rewritten by Joel Schumacher and someone else after they bought it off Andrew Kevin Walker. And it wouldn't surprise me if the original version did actually end in that warehouse. And I think maybe they just added the end on. They wanted some more context. They wanted some answers. And I think when you look at the three characters of Peter Stormare as Dino Velvet, which is, if any character Peter Stormare was going to out crazy his own performances in every other movie he's ever done,
his
Dino
accent
Velvet
was
does
tempered,
it.
Though. It wasn't as extreme as it usually is.
I was talking with a friend of mine and was saying, you know what? I would love to just see a movie based on Dino Velvet.
Yeah, you're watching that one by yourself, pal.
Yeah, I think he could get severely dark with it, and it's a character that I was really interested in. It was like, I'd love to know more about this character, because realistically, he's in the one scene where they actually meet him at his office, and then he's at the warehouse.
Yeah.
There's no in-between scenes of that. They are the only two scenes that the head honcho of Peter Stormare, and then he gets, spoiler alert, he gets killed off in spectacular fashion.
Well, no, that's the thing. It's not spectacular.
No, his reaction to it is spectacular.
Oh, his reaction's brilliant. He's like, no, not like this. I need to go out. Movie star death. Like, okay.
Realistically, when I look at this, I am kind of conflicted on it, because I think what is there is great, but there is something that just feels like tacked on. It's like those many endings of Lord of the Rings, that they put on there.
Don't you besmirch Lord of the Rings.
I knew I was going to get that. But to me, I mean, I love the Going to Machine's house bit at the end. I don't think
Yeah.
I've ever heard Aphex Twin work in a movie before, but holy shit, that track and the record player blipping as he's going through when you're listening to that in surround, it is terrifying. It is so tensely done. But the only problem being is, when you go out the window and he takes the mask off, he's talking in a normal voice when it's pissing down with rain and all that after him.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, you wouldn't realistically hear him.
Maybe they went, what?
But,
I can't hear you. I got to buy a T-Rex skull. What?
Yeah. When Machine talks, it is purely exposition.
Yeah.
You get his entire life backstory and everything in one clump of dialogue. Right? And I thought, you know what? It would have been more effective if he didn't say anything at all and left us all thinking.
Yeah.
And Paul Verhoeven was approached to direct this movie at one point. You would have seen everything.
Jesus. I wouldn't have been watching that version. No offense, Paul, but if you were tackling this, holy flirking schnit, it would have been dark.
It would have been. I don't think that movie would have. That was going to be an NC-17 for sure.
Yeah.
Two things I noticed, which I don't know if you picked up on while I was watching it on this time, that I never noticed before.
Mm-hmm.
One was a poster in James Gandolfini's office of a movie called Anal Crybabies.
I did see the word anal. I didn't see the crybabies bit. But yeah, I saw that.
That's just too much. But there's one thing that I never noticed before, but now I think this is just kind of genius for this movie. I love how Nicolas Cage is Windows PC suddenly transforms into a Mac in the same scene.
It was the 90s. No one gave a shit about computers really, unless you're in a hacker film.
But the thing is, you can't tell that it's like a reshoot or an added on scene because everything looks exactly the same apart from this computer. So I just have this vision at some point they were like, we cannot get this thing to work. It's not compatible. Bring in a Mac. Well, do we need to reshoot the entire thing? No. Just no one will know. Chuck it on there.
We noticed. Right, one last nugget that I will like to drop on you, very, very quick before we move on, is that noted down in the credits, one of the stunt team is Chad Stahelski, who doubled for Keanu Reeves in the Matrix films and then went on to direct the John Wick films. So there you go.
Very true. Very true. I didn't even pick up on that myself.
Yeah.
A little bit of true. But yeah, he was quite a leading stuntman for a number of years.
Yeah, he was probably Nicolas Cage's stuntman, I would have thought, in this.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
I wonder what stunt's going to be. Or he's probably just the guy who fell into the dry swimming pool.
Yeah, something like that.
Which I think is one of the only stunts in the entire movie, apart from going through the window into the churchyard. I honestly can't think of anything else.
No. Anyway.
Okay. Anyway, so 8mm. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts is it's an unpleasant watch. It's nowhere near as close to the lofty highs of something like 7, but it doesn't deserve to be as low as it is. And I had a look on Rotten Tomatoes, and it seems to be very much a critics don't like it kind of thing. Audiences kind of divided down the middle. I definitely put it is far better than it kind of got credit for. If we were doing a Get It Freshed, I would probably put it in a Get It Freshed.
Yeah, I think it at least deserves double the points that it has from the critics.
Yeah.
I put it in the 50s. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Yes, there are certain aspects of it that do not fit. I'm kind of torn between whether the music actually fits. There's a lot of Bangladesh-style music cues.
Yeah, I wasn't too keen on the music.
Yeah, which I wasn't sure what the symbolism was. No. Is there a lot of like porn in Bangladesh?
I don't know. It obviously was there to signify something, but what, I don't know.
If anyone knows, let us know. So that is the first of the What's in the Bargain Bin.
Yeah.
And surprisingly enough, it's a film I guess you kind of have liked a little.
Yeah, I have actually. Yeah.
Okay.
No rush to watch it again, but no, I thought, no, I didn't mind that one at all.
Well, you don't need to now. You've seen it.
Yeah.
So I doubt it'll come up on the anniversaries. Oh, but speaking of anniversaries.
We watch them again all of the time, or we get them on Prime for free. But we only know how old they are when we learn their anniversary.
We could have just played the entire version of it for this one. Make up some time.
Why have we not got many anniversaries this week?
Well, we got 3.
Okay.
But if you've not seen them, there's not really going to be much to talk about.
It's always hit and miss this point, isn't it? They're frantically praying, please God, let him see it.
Well, I was still writing all the content out when I was linking on to come onto the actual show. It's been one of them days. I've been constantly an hour behind myself today. I do apologise. But I guess we'll go back to 1997.
Okay.
Where the movie Air Force One was released.
Oh, I do like this film.
Oh, thank God you've seen it.
Yeah.
You stretch 20 minutes out on us.
It was one of those early flipper Blu-rays, not Blu-rays,
Oh.
DVDs.
Oh.
So, yeah, it was ages before I actually saw the movie the whole way through without having to stop and get up and flip the damn thing over. But no, I like this movie. Get off my plane! Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I saw it first on VHS. I didn't even get to the theaters to see it. But directed by the late Wolfgang Petersen, who we just lost recently.
Yeah, very recently.
And if I'm going to talk about the Mount Rushmore, I will put Air Force One on Wolfgang Petersen's Mount Rushmore. I put it there with Das Boot, or The Boat.
Das oder Boot.
Das left boot. That's right boot. Yeah, the director's cut of Das Boot, obviously. I'd also put Outbreak on there, which is more like a documentary nowadays. And controversially, there's always one controversial one when I do the Mount Rushmore. I would actually put Enemy Mine on there.
Oh, did he direct that one?
Yeah, that was his. It was either that or The Never-Ending Story, which was like his first English language.
No, he did direct Never-Ending Story, did he?
He did direct The Never-Ending Story, yeah.
Wow.
Yes. Traumatized an entire generation of 80s children with that movie. If it's not crying at a horse drowning in quicksand, it's that bloody dog. Not Falco, the wolf thing. I can't remember what its name was.
Yeah, I remember the one, yeah.
That's freaking terrifying.
They don't make kids' films like that anymore, do they?
They don't, no. Unfortunately, a lot of the kids' movies nowadays, if they're not CGI animated,
and everything's dead safe, and they have a musical number at the end. And
bring back childhood trauma, that's what I say.
Yeah.
Bring back the days when The Secret of Nim used to give you nightmares.
Oh, jeez, that's another one as well.
Yeah. That was like one of the first animated movies I ever saw, and it scared the living Jesus out of me.
That owl.
But it's brilliant.
Oof.
It's brilliant.
Creepy as hell. Anyway.
If you didn't have Watership Down, you had that. Anyway, Air Force One. Yes. Well, what can be said about this? It is basically among the last of the 90s Die Hard formula movies.
Mm-hmm.
So this was Die Hard on Air Force One, which had been done by kind of like Passenger 57, had done Die Hard on a plane. But they did kind of cop out because, for some strange reason, halfway through Passenger 57, they went to a fairground.
Yeah, at least this one does actually stay on the plane for the most of it. And this was back in the day when the Russians were seen as the good guys.
Well, kind of. But you have Gary Oldman. Obviously, Harrison Ford is the president. Gary Oldman is the nemesis, the terrorist. Hire an English person to do the main bad guy, That formula was all over the 90s. And Gary Oldman was the villain of the day. He was kind of fresh off Leon, where he delivered one of the greatest performances ever.
Yeah, and it was just before he did Fifth Element as well. Because that was that I think that was 98.
Fifth Element was before this one.
Was it?
Yes, it was the same year actually.
Oh.
So Fifth Element was released in 97, and this was released in 97. So this was immediately following that incredibly bad hairstyle that he had in the Fifth Element.
Crazy accent in both, though.
Oh yeah, he's the man of crazy accents. Air Force One, unfortunately, has been kind of tainted nowadays because a certain former president name-dropped this movie, and the fucker used the score from the movie when he became president. Which I'm sure that the person who recorded the original score before it was rejected was Randy Newman. And he must have been so relieved. Can you imagine Donald Trump coming out to Little Hands, Orange Face, Big Disgrace?
President's on his plane. He's gonna fly somewhere. There's a Russian terrorist. He's got some crazy hair. You know, that's what I can imagine the score would have been. Can you imagine if the things had got mixed up and whoever it was that actually wrote the score for this ended up doing Toy Story or something?
Oh, well, funnily enough, you should mention that because the original score that was recorded for Air Force One by Randy Newman before he got replaced and that score got rejected, elements of that do actually show up in Toy Story 3.
Oh, God.
But yes, Harrison Ford was not the first choice for the role. Do you know who it was?
Oh, so, okay, this time... Was it going to be someone like Sean Connery or Liam Neeson or someone like that? Someone definitely not American?
No, it was Kevin Costner. So
okay.
Kevin Costner was the original choice, which I can buy. I can believe that. Unfortunately, he was still stuck on The Postman at the time, and that's a story that we've definitely got to talk to Bill about.
That's a very long route.
Yes, it's like if you haven't learned anything from Kevin's Gate, or Waterworld as it's known, it's like, no, let's give him another 3-hour epic sci-fi movie that's basically Waterworld, but with a mailbag.
Yeah.
And that was The Postman. But it had Tom Petty in it, which was pretty cool.
This movie is, for the most part, it's brilliant. And it keeps the tension going. It's got some really nice set pieces, like with the US planes, and they're trying to escort it, and then there's these rockets that have been fired, and one sacrifices itself. And oh, brilliant! But then it has that terrible plane crash at the very end. That just seems
the one in the water.
Yeah, that you just look at it and think, no, physics don't allow an object the size of a plane to move like that.
Have you seen those, the kind of like Instagram or TikTok videos where they show these planes making these really impossible landings and people are actually fooled into thinking they're real and they're just like CGI planes?
No.
Those look better than the crash in this movie.
It looks like it was given to the work experience kid to do it at like about 3:30 on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah, when they could have just asked Harrison Ford to down a plane for free. He's got that much bloody expertise. Got paid $20 million to down a plane in this movie. But yeah, obviously there's a lot of things in this that don't stand right. It's the part in the movie where like all the vice president, secretary of state, and all stuff like that. You know, they're all arguing over, who takes control now, blah, blah, blah. I would have so marked out if a cameo from Alexander Haig would have happened like, hey, everybody, I'll do it. If you know your American politics, you'll find that at least humorous. No? Okay, it's you can Google it. It's about when Ronald Reagan was shot.
Oh, did he step in and became temporary president or something? Or what?
Well, he stepped in and said, that he was going to be taking over, and apparently it wasn't even his job to do that. So.
It's the Speaker of the House, isn't it?
Something like that.
It's
I
something.
don't
It's
know.
not the vice president that takes over.
I'm sure whoever it was did just as bad a job as every other president. But Air Force One, I really like this movie.
So do I.
You know,
It's one of the
those movies.
better Die Hard clones from that period because they varied wildly in quality. Because you got stuff like Under Siege. It's a pretty good film. Then you've got things like Passenger 57, which isn't brilliant. Then you've got, what is it, Sudden Death, which I actually quite like.
Yeah, I actually like
I've
that.
got quite a fondness for that one. So, they tended to flop backwards and forwards on the quality meter, just like Die Hard did by itself. But this one, I think, does stand above the other ones. And I don't know if it's down to the performances, down to just the fact that the situation is slightly different, as opposed to just being, there's a house full of ordinary people. Though it's like an entire nation is having a gun put to its head in this kind of instance. I don't know what it is. It just seems to work better.
Yeah, I think obviously it ranges into fantasy a lot. It's not a movie you're going to take seriously.
No.
But it's a popcorn movie.
Yeah.
There's some fun there. The scene where he's like calling through the White House main phone line, and the woman doesn't believe that he's the president. If you remember that.
Yeah, it has actually been quite a while since I've seen it. I'm just trying to remember the actual moment. I know that it's difficult for him to get through, and then when he actually does manage to get through, the entire room just goes, "Hey!" to the point that you can't even hear what it is that he's saying.
Yeah. It's. I mean, for one, if your movie's got Xander Berkeley in it, he's going to turn out to be a bad guy.
Yeah.
Because he always does that. He's just one of those personalities in a film. He's turning out to be the bad guy in it. But yeah, it's Air Force One. You can't go wrong with it. But in speaking about the writing of a character, do you know who the most effective character in that movie is?
Glenn Close?
No. Who also stepped in last minute. I can't remember who was originally cast in that role. But the most effective character is the woman who is in charge of like showing, the Russian reporters, as they were, onto Air Force One. She's written as the nicest, like most warm and welcoming person on Air Force One. And when she is shot, it is harrowing. She is assassinated over the microphone. And it is so unsettling because that character was perfectly written.
It's like in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where the shoe gets dipped. Because
that actress is going to feel so warm about her career now.
No.
That she measures up to an animated shoe.
Because the shoe is all doe-eyed and it's all nice and it's all lovely, and then it just gets brutally just destroyed by Judge Doom, and that sets yourself up perfectly, sets your movie up perfectly, because then okay, the bad guy does actually mean business.
Yeah.
It gives you a proper reason to hate the bad guy. You feel sorry for the person who died, and that kind of ups the stakes a bit more, so... Yeah.
That has always stuck with me from that film. I always remember that scene because it was like, oh my god, that actually is a horrifying thing. But it was more effective than the Takagi murder in Die Hard. Because Takagi,
Yoshinobu Takagi.
Yeah, he was too smug for his own good. He was just like, I'm going to play these guys. Oh really? Bang, dead. And Ellis, you didn't give a shit about.
No.
But when someone innocent is effectively murdered, it makes the bad guy so much stronger. And it adds a serious level of tension to that movie. And then when you see William H. Macy get shot, you're like, how dare you?
How dare you touch my willy?
Oh, shit.
Right.
Okay, right. Yeah. Air Force One, 1997.
Okay, what's
Cheers.
next?
Okay. Let's go back 20 years. 20 years ago, I've seen someone post about this just recently, and we discussed it last week with Jonas on our video episode, which you can find on YouTube, as well as an audio version on Spotify and all the other places. Signs came out.
Siggins.
Yes. Now, obviously, we're going to differ on this movie, aren't we?
In what way?
In the fact that I like it a lot. And you don't.
I don't mind it, but that's the thing. A lot of it is just way too slow. It's just people kind of stood around looking into the middle distance with nothing really happening up until about the last quarter of the film. And everyone goes on about there's a jump scare where the alien walks down the end of the alleyway. It looks so bad that it did nothing for me. And what makes it even worse is if you've seen, is it Scary Movie 3? That just lampoons and lambasts the movie.
We're looking at you, David.
Yep. If I hadn't have gone down that exact road and didn't have that exact 15 beers at that exact bar, then drive the exact 118 miles an hour over the... yeah. It's an alright film, but I'm just...
It's weird in watching it again just recently that I did realise that kind of Jordan Peele style, where with watching Nope also within the same month, and there is such a kind of cinematic similarity there. I do place this among M. Night's best. I do put it up there with The Sixth Sense. I do put it up there with The Village that I personally like. And there's something about Lady in the Water I have not figured out, but I do know that there is something about it I like. I just can't figure out what it is. But I would chuck that up there. Sorry, Last Airbender, but you just don't match up. It's funny that you kind of mentioned the whole car accident scene, which was perfectly sent up in Scary Movie 3, as you mentioned.
If this is her top half, can I? Yeah.
But it's not the first time M. Night Shyamalan has used a car accident as a motivation. Unbreakable did the exact same thing. But also, Unbreakable was the movie before Signs. But also, have you seen Unbreakable?
I have seen Unbreakable. I've not seen Glass.
Oh, you don't miss much. So, Bruce Willis and Robin Wright Penn have a car accident in that, which causes, Bruce Willis to give up his football career or whatever it was in the movie, and obviously he was never hurt from it. And then obviously in Signs, Mel Gibson's wife dies, from this car accident. But then I noticed another link, whereas both in Unbreakable and in Signs, water is a weakness.
Is he? Oh God,
because Bruce Willis's character, water is seen as his weakness, and it's over like he can't swim and stuff like that. So he can actually drown. It's the only way that he can be hurt.
So what you're saying is
drowning.
that Shyamalan went back to the well?
Yeah, in a sense. Yeah. And then obviously in Signs, the aliens with water.
Yeah.
So it was like a conscious decision, or is there something about car crashes and water?
I don't know. It'd be interesting to know which one was written first.
I believe Unbreakable was written first.
All right.
But it does seem a theme. And now it's a case of I actually now want to see some more of Shyamalan's stuff to see if car accidents and water play into the characters' narratives even more.
They don't really in the first one. In Sixth Sense, which is by far and away his best one. There's a spaceship crash in
No, wait a minute. No, hang on a minute. In The Sixth Sense,
There is a
in the
cyclist
scene,
that's got hit by a car.
exactly.
Yeah, but it's not like a major catalyst for the plot, though.
No, but it's the reason why they're sat there in the car and he gives the big reveal to Tony
Yeah.
Collette. So it still is an auto accident. So that may be something to look into there.
Oh.
The infamous scene where Mel Gibson and he's having that last meeting with his wife. I can't remember who played his wife in it. Was it someone notable?
Oh God, I can't remember. Every time I try and picture that scene, I just keep picturing Denise Richards.
Yeah, God, yeah. I'm sure Charlie does as well.
Yeah.
But it's that scene in particular with Mel Gibson and his wife was shot the day after 9/11.
Oh, that must have been a tough day's shoot.
Yes, they ended up having a candlelight vigil at the end of the shoot that day. But that every single person, they went through with it, even though everything was kind of shut down, everyone was scared. But that scene was scheduled to be shot, and they shot it.
Wow.
So that is kind of always imprinted on that scene nowadays. That was the time frame of when that happened.
God, it just seems so long ago, and yet for kind of like people our age, really, it just seems like yesterday.
Exactly.
Weird the way that time just plays tricks with your brain.
It is, and I went to Ground Zero just recently while I was in New York, and it is just it's so bizarre.
It's a strange place, isn't it?
It's an incredibly strange feeling when you get there. Because I remember Vincent Tumio, who was with us on that day, he's an actor, and he said it's going to be interesting to pick up on what you feel when you get here. I'm not going to say anything, just kind of just take it in. And it's so weird that you can feel this real heavy presence there. And every single person who was there was 200, 300 people there when we were there, and everyone was quiet.
It is a very, very somber place, because I went in 2017, I think it was, and you're absolutely right. There is this sense of respect and reverie there for what happened, and the one thing that was stuck in my mind more than anything else is that I was expecting the actual footprint of each of the buildings to be much bigger. And they weren't actually kind of wide buildings. It was two very tall ones, but there were two very, very small ones, and I think that kind of stayed with me. I don't know why that in particular did, but that always stayed with me.
Yeah. I know it's kind of detracting from Signs a little bit. I don't know whether that's saying anything. In regards to Signs, obviously we've got Joaquin Phoenix yet again.
Yeah.
Doing a great job. And no, he was not the first person in line for that role.
Who was, dear? Who was?
Mark Ruffalo.
Okay. No. I think they did right with having Mr. Phoenix.
Yes. Well, Mark Ruffalo had to actually opt out of the role because they discovered his brain tumor, which turned out to be benign. But it was very nearly him that did it. And Mr. Dependable, Joaquin Phoenix. Realistically, when you look at Joaquin Phoenix and all of the roles that he has had throughout his career, he has had such a diverse career, but it's not an in-your-face career either.
No, except for when he did that weird movie where he was...
Oh, his documentary, thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's kind of stepped back from that now. And, he's getting really serious about, you're an actor. You don't have to live this shit.
No.
It's like I can't remember the old story where...
Are you talking about Marathon Man?
Yes, the Marathon Man story. Have you ever tried acting? Yeah.
Yeah, it was it Laurence Olivier who was in that one?
It was Laurence Olivier to Dustin Hoffman.
Hoffman. Yeah. He's absolutely right. It is acting. I mean, there's many different techniques that you can use, and one of the biggest ones is Stanislavski, which means that you take some element of the real world into your performance. And some people just try and dig up something which may have happened to them in the past. Like if you've got a scene where you're having to be quite emotional and upset, then you kind of reach back into your own past. You know, you try and think of people who've broken your heart or relatives that you've lost, something like that. That's, I think, is standard. But then when you get people like Jared Leto who are sending pigs' heads and use condoms to people, then you've crossed the line there. Really, it's acting. That's it. You're not curing cancer.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to know the shit that he was doing for Morbius.
Oh,
I'm going to go out and bite some people.
I'm going to really suck some blood.
Yeah. Was that an authentic Jared Leto impression?
I have no idea.
Sound like a 70s cop show. Yeah, I mean, Signs. A lot of people on the fence. I remember a lot of people like, "Oh, it's shit." It's crap. It's boring. War of the Worlds did something very similar, and it's taking the point of view of an alien invasion on one family.
Yes.
Right? And that was a major complaint of War of the Worlds for a lot of people. But that's what it is. You know, you've got to. You've seen so many movies of alien invasions that do not work, where it's all-encompassing, and the focus is on the spectacle. I kind of like the approach where you're seeing it from one person's vantage point. And nope, yet again, bring it up. That does the same thing. It is from the vantage point of this small, group of people around this one house.
No, I agree with you. I think sometimes you can get away with having a much smaller scope, but I don't know. There still needs to be stuff happening, and it just felt like there were just long swathes of this movie where nothing in particular was going on. So,
It depends on if you like the tension, and I do. And these films are set for sitting in a movie theater and watching it and really just soaking up that atmosphere where, you can't get distracted by anything else.
Okay.
But I do like Signs.
Okay. Well, like I said, I'm a bit meh. It's a bit meh for me. But
okay.
Okay. So what have we got last?
Well, if you've not seen this film, then this is going to be over in 30 seconds.
Okay.
Okay. In 1992, the movie House Sitter was released.
Is that Steve Martin?
It is Steve Martin, yes, and Goldie Hawn.
I think I saw it back in maybe 1992. Can't tell you anything that happens in it apart from the fact that she pretends to be this guy's wife and then ruins his life and then he ends up falling in love with her.
Yeah. So you try switching that story. You try switching those roles around. It becomes incredibly creepy.
Yeah, it's kind of like Overboard.
Yeah. Oh my god, and that's Goldie Hawn as well.
Yeah.
So basically, she just did Overboard yet again, and it's based on, from what I can remember, it was it was a one night stand, and then apparently a regrettable one night stand for Steve Martin or whatever, and then suddenly she's like, "Oh no, I'm going to come in and invade his life and move in." Something that What About Bob actually did a lot better. Except it wasn't a one-night stand. just to get that into that head.
That would have been interesting. A one-night stand between Richard Dreyfuss and Bill Murray.
Yes. Dr. Marvin. Hello. Yeah. But House Sitter, directed by Frank Oz. We know who Frank Oz is. We know him as the voice of Fozzie Bear. We know him as Bert. We know him as Grover. We even know him as Yoda.
Yeah.
But little do a lot of people know, he is actually an accomplished director also.
Yeah, he's directed loads of stuff. He directed Little Shop of Horrors.
Very true.
At the moment,
Bowfinger.
Bowfinger, yes, he did. That's Steve Martin again.
That's his best movie. That is the best movie he has ever directed. It is hilarious, and it gets funnier with each
Yeah.
time you view it.
I get just staying on Bowfinger 1 second. I love that scene where they're just getting the shot of Kit Ramsey from behind, but it's his younger brother, and he's just getting so excited about seeing a woman with the top off. He's just like, "Wow,
You're gonna be a star." It is. It's a hilarious movie, and it's so full of Hollywood inside jokes. You know, the Mindhead, which is basically Scientology.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant movie. In Taiwan, this has a very interesting name. This movie.
Is it the she devil who comes to steal your house or something like that?
No, but that probably would have made more sense. In Taiwan, this movie is called Half a Wife in My Soup.
Huh.
I cannot figure out. I mean, that's a play on Fly in My Soup.
Could be. But why half a wife?
No, she's definitely got her legs in the movie, and she's definitely got her head.
Mm-hmm. I'm guessing there's some stuff in between to link the two parts. So,
well, there was early in the movie, otherwise there'd be no plot. Yeah, Half a Wife in My Soup. So I've been trying to figure this one out for the last hour, because obviously the in my soup, the Fly in My Soup, is a lead on to a punchline. Why would there be, waiter, there's half a wife in my soup? We're probably pondering on it way too much, but then again, that's pretty much the movie for you.
Well, if I remember correctly, the joke, waiter, there's a fly in my soup, and the waiter says, "Well, don't talk too loudly, or everyone will want one."
Is that the original joke?
That's one that I remember hearing that in Faulty Towers.
Right,
I think
okay.
it was a hair in my soup.
Okay, so what's the origin of the fly in my soup?
I
joke?
don't know.
What's the original punchline?
Well, there's also the other one. Waiter, what's this fly doing in my soup? And the waiter looks in and goes, "Backstroke."
Okay. Okay.
But I don't really know how this all translates to. Where did you say it was? Korea? Vietnam? Where was it?
Taiwan.
Thailand. I don't know.
Taiwan.
Taiwan on. No idea.
But it's not the most craziest title change that they've ever had. There's been some really bizarre ones, and I guarantee you all of their Steven Seagal ones are going to be amazing.
Yeah.
House Sitter, it's not a classic. It's one of those movies that is just there. I think it filled 2 hours. Nothing special.
I'd be damned if I can remember anything more about it than what I've already said earlier.
But this was kind of the last hurrah for Goldie Hawn and the re-emergence of Steve Martin. He had a career boom around this time with Father of the Bride. There was another film that came out around the time of House Sitter that also had Steve Martin in.
Was it Parenthood?
Parenthood was a couple of years before, and that is an incredible movie. One of the best ensemble comedy movies I've ever seen.
With Joaquin Phoenix again.
Fuck my life. Oh my God.
And Keanu Reeves.
Phoenix is everywhere. And
this
Keanu
tends
Reeves.
to happen on this program. We start with something, and then it's like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Everything just keeps coming back to a common thread.
Well, Hollywood's a really small place.
Yeah.
It really is. When I link somebody that I'm working with on IMDb Pro, and then it says, "Oh, you have this person in common," and it's like suddenly now I've got like 12 people, but now I've got over 30 because it's like, oh shit, all our Poddywood guests. So I'm now linked with all these people, and then you see they're linked with people, and it becomes this giant pyramid of people. So it's like, I wonder how you get to be that Kevin Bacon character, where you just link to everybody.
By joining the EE network.
I guess so.
You'll probably only get if you're listening to this in the UK.
And then you probably won't get EE either.
No. Definitely don't get 3.
Yeah, I mean, House Sitter, was released in 1992, which is strange because that's kind of the summer come down. And it was very weird. I was talking with Bill about the releases from Warner Brothers around this time. There were some amazing things coming out, and The Bodyguard was still impending. That thing was being released at Christmas and not leaving the box office for months.
Yeah, just like that bloody single that came from it as well.
There was always one. That's why we always say nowadays, thank God, the love theme from this movie and the one with the music video tie-in is never there anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm amazed how Sitter actually became a number one movie, because it's not ranked among my favourite movies of the year, but I guess Steve Martin must have been riding the high at that time, especially after Father of the Bride was such a hit.
Yeah. It worked for someone. I mean...
It did work for someone. But yeah, that was the anniversaries for this week. Short, sweet, to the point.
So, I guess it's time for us to delve back into the box of rot again, isn't it?
What's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box?
For some reason, this music now sounds better than it did when we were actually looking at good movies.
Yes, it's got the full-on scream.
Yeah.
But yes, explain what's different about What's in the Box now for the people who have just rejoined us.
Okay, well, this season on What's in the Box, Andy's going to put his hand into a box full of movie titles, except this time around, they're going to be certified rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. This is going to be the cream of the crap. This is going to be everything which is 25% and under. So, same rules apply as before. If I have seen it, then we just keep pulling out movies until we find one that I haven't seen, and I go away and watch that whenever I feel the urge to, but before we record the next episode.
That's the most long-winded way you could have gone to explain that. You can tell you're feeling hungover today.
I'm very hungover today.
Well, I'd like to say, oh God, I don't think you've seen this because we have mentioned this movie in the past. Okay. I'd like to say that you're going to feel better after this movie. But making their first appearance on a What's in the Box, Franchise Pictures presents...
Oh God, no, please don't let it be Battlefield Earth.
Well, you've seen that anyway, haven't you?
No.
You haven't? Oh shit, that one's definitely in the box then. No. You have got 3,000 Miles to Graceland.
Now, I remember this coming up when we were talking about Franchise Pictures, and if you want to go back and listen to that episode yourself at home, you can do. Can't remember which one it was, but just have a look down your Spotify playlist, it'll be on there. And I remember thinking, I quite like the sound of that. I wouldn't mind watching it at some point.
Well, now you're going to watch it.
Yes. So, I'm actually quite looking forward to that one. That was Nicolas Cage again, wasn't it?
No, it was Kevin Costner.
No. Right.
And Kurt Russell.
Okay.
But the theme was Elvis's, and you were probably thinking of Honeymoon in Vegas.
That might be it, yeah. Yeah, the Elvis is robbing a casino or something, aren't they?
Yes.
Right.
That's part of the plot.
Ocean's 11, except with just, like, little more conversation on repeat.
No. It's going to be hard to describe this one. I'm going to have to watch it again myself. But Bill, funnily enough, had kind things to say about it on the franchise show. So you may actually get some joy out of it.
Okay.
Or you might be like, what the hell have I just watched?
Okay, well, we'll soon find out next week, though, won't we?
Yes, or you'll have a sore neck from all of the Dutch angles. A staple of Franchise Pictures.
Not more Dutch angles, please. That's better than Dutch ovens, though, I suppose.
Yes, more Dutch angles than Paul Verhoeven going fishing. Anyway, well, that's the show this week. Thank you very much for tuning into our audio shows. We will be having Bill Daly on our next video show that is coming up shortly in a couple of days. What we're going to be talking about, we're not too sure. We were going to talk about Wolfgang Petersen, but that's kind of lapsed now. He's gone and we've lost the Queen since. But, hey, we all quickly got over that one unless we were queuing for like 12 miles, which I wasn't.
No. Most of the country is
Why queue for 12 miles? It's on TV.
I don't know. I guess it's the same difference with, being at a sports match and watching it at home when you lounge. You can pee into a cup in both places, so...
And on that note...
Yeah.
So yes, Bill Daly will be joining us. We're going to have Rick Ravanello joining us again soon. That's going to be hilarious. Oh my God, I've never heard so many people telling me that they loved the episode with Rick so much.
It was a fun one.
And he's absolutely in love with the show. He loves coming on. We're hopefully going to be hearing from John Ashton soon. And you never know who's going to show up on Poddywood.
Yes. So between then and now, you have yourself a good week. You can follow us at Poddywood on pretty much every single platform that's out there. Facebook, Twitter, join in the conversation. Let us know what you think about the show or any of the movies or any of the other topics that we've mentioned today. And so with that in mind, it's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from myself also.
Bye.